us to pay homage to him.
We have always been the prize because we have always had and still have something that other people won't, think they can't do without, and don't care to pay for. Because we have always been the prize, we have been under siege for over 3,000 years. Nothing that ever brought into Africa from the outside was meant to do the African any good.
She made me to know my history, to know my roots. So I grew up with a love for myself and secure within myself, never feeling inferior and certainly not feeling superior, but that chip on the shoulder that the young lady spoke about is my self-assurance, my confidence, my ability to speak the truth without fear. I don't bend when I don't have to. I don't scratch where I don't itch. I look white people in the eye and speak honestly and truthfully and candidly and unhypocritically to you. That's not a chip. That's just self-assurance that comes from self-knowledge. Teach your children that, and whether we are here or there, we'll be able to make a future for ourselves.
Who are you? You don't know. Don't tell me Negro, that's nothing. What were you before the white man named you a Negro? And where were you? And what did you have? What was yours? What language did you speak then? What was your name? It couldn't have been Smith or Jones or Bunch or Powell. That wasn't your name. They don't have those kind of names where you and I came from. No, what was your name? And why don't you now know what your name was then? Where did it go? Where did you lose it? Who took it? And how did he take it? What tongue did you speak? How did the man take your tongue? Where is your history? How did the man wipe out your history? What did the man do to make you as dumb as you are right now?
In fact, recently, some rather garbage is written in books by people who call themselves historians, make them feel as if we have to thank Lyndon Baines Johnson for the advancement because he signed the Civil Rights Bill. Of course he signed it. But while he was signing it, we were in the streets burning the country down. You better hurry and sign it. Burn the whole country down. Do it quick. But if you're not careful, you will thank Lyndon Baines Johnson.
I say now, give us that poetry on number 7. He wanted to go to heaven, so I took him in 7. You took him in 7. I am the king of the world. Hold it. I'm pretty. Hold it. You're not that pretty. I'm a bad man. Wait. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world.
So we always say in the Black Panther Party that they can do anything they want to us. We might not be back. I might be in jail. I might be anywhere. But when I leave, you can remember I said with the last words on my lips that I am a revolutionary.
Greetings and welcome to another episode of the Melanated Power Hour. I'm your host, Sam Polk Jr. So honored, so thankful, so blessed to have you back with us one more time as we discuss issues pertinent to the African Diaspora. And once again, for those who are new to this show, the African Diaspora is anywhere that black people may be, whether it be Jackson, Mississippi, Nashville, Tennessee, Haiti, Puerto Rico, Barbados, you name it. We recognize those places as our homes away from home, but we also recognize the fact that we are indeed African, and the continent of Africa is our home indeed. I am joined again by the man, the myth, the legend, the funniest man I know, comedian Just Will. What say you, my brother?
My brother, man. It's always a pleasure sitting across from you in this room, man. I can't wait to see what you got for us tonight. And, dude, I'm ready to just sit back and enjoy the show.
Absolutely. We have a spectacular guest with us today. Before I introduce him, I'm going to just let you know that we're going to be talking about history and some of the things that we've talked about in the past on previous episodes about what's going on in Jackson, Mississippi, and that is the antagonist for this evening, the great city of Jackson, Mississippi, my hometown, and we're going to talk about the history of it in its current state and in the past. But joining us this episode is the great brother Ken Clark of Tiger Talk Podcast with the 1400 Club. Brother Ken, how you doing?
I'm doing well, bro. Appreciate you for having me on.
Absolutely.
Having a little technical difficulty over here, but it's okay.
It's all good, man. We're going to work through it. What I wanted to get you to do first and foremost before we get started, can you tell the listening audience what you got going on, what you're into? Watch you and Brother Zoe all the time. Brother Corey C., you do so much for the school, figuratively and literally. Can you explain to the audience what you do and what your claim to fame is?
Yeah, man. Like I said, first of all, I appreciate you for having me on. Co-host of Tiger Talk with the 1400 Club podcast. We're a podcast that covers all things Jackson State University. Myself, B. Corey C. Zoe, Shaq, Mike B. A host of alums. We've been basically covering Jackson State athletics since 2019. As of right now, you know, we recently navigated to YouTube this year, and prior to coming to YouTube, we were on all major podcast outlets: Spotify, Google, Apple, Anchor, so forth and so on. And we wanted to get into the YouTube space to add that visual, which seems like my camera don't want to go out. You know, so and then two, also I have my own YouTube page, Ken Clark _1400. It's really just an extension of Tiger Talk. Tiger Talk, we don't do live episodes. Yes, we mainly do pre-recorded shows where we it allows us to edit and push out the content we need, make sure we keep everything in line because we are tied to the university. That being said, we definitely on YouTube, myself and Zoe, we do a lot of live shows, mainly just covering week to week as the football season is going along. We've been allowing ourselves to be a little bit more visible and approachable, and giving the kind of that raw reaction slash I would say just interaction amongst our you know, great fan base. Being a true Jackson native, and even though I don't live in the city at the time, it's still great to create a platform that allows our fans to interact with some of us who are actually inundated in Jackson State, and we're also from there. Yes, we're not just, you know, just those that are covering. We appreciate everyone that's covering Jackson State, but it's a little different when you're from the crib, you know.
Absolutely. Mr. Clark, before we get started, can I just ask you a question, because you from Jackson, right? Jackson, Mississippi, right?
Born and raised, yes, sir.
Born and raised. Good. Okay, that's great, because I just want to get some things cleared up here, man. Brother Polk here, I've known him since college. You know, I got to college, about what, 20 years? Is that something 20? Yeah, it's been over 20 years, man. And when I got to Lane College down in Jackson, Tennessee, I met this brother. You know, a highly educated brother. He's well spoken. I mean, just an honor to meet this brother. And you know, I thought this is what college was going to be about. You know, he was very highly educated, like I said, very mature, polite. And I was like, wow, this pro-black brother, you know, he's well spoken, very educated, you know, putting me into the books and everything. I was like, okay, great. But when we get out in public, like to certain, because you know we all play football and everything. When we get out to the clubs and everything, that well-spoken brother disappeared. Here we go. And the reason I said he disappeared was because as a freshman coming into school, you know, and you know, sometimes football players, you know, they get out there and they get the roughhouse and everything, and they don't let nobody jump their own. And I didn't know that when I got there. And when I got there, you know, these Jacksonians, they tried to rough me up. And the first brother to throw a punch, and I'm not saying this brother's changed just quite a bit. You know, he's not, I don't think he's the same as he was. You know, he still got it in him. But the first brother to throw a punch was Mr. Polk here. Now, I was wondering, all you Jackson, you know what I'm saying, Mississippians, y'all all like that?
Most of us. You know, it's like this, man. We if you with me and some pop out, man, it's on. You know what I mean? We come together. We gonna ride together. We gonna, you know, we kind of know nonsense. You know. Absolutely. But you know, I'll say this though, man. We good folk. You know, at the end of the day, we good people, man. But
hell yeah. You damn sure good folk, because I didn't get my ass kicked that night. So y'all damn sure some good folk.
So, you know what's funny? That tells you right then that me and Mr. Polk got a lot in common, because I got a couple of partners that they call me the muscle of the crew. You know, I try not to, my days, you know, nowadays, you know, you whoop a dude, you know, you gotta, your life is in danger, man.
Right,
It's one of those things where back in the day, you know, we'd duke it out and then we'll move on.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, shake hands, or we're gonna duke it out again tomorrow, you know, depending on who won or lost and how bad it was, you know.
Yes, sir.
But the way it was that, you know, I get you down, I ain't gonna hit you while you're down.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna let you get up. I'm gonna let you get your feet under you, and then we're gonna duke it out again. And then when it's over with, we shake hands, dap up, and go our separate ways, you know.
Absolutely.
But that's how we get down.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, we don't take no nonsense, man. We done seen a lot coming from the SIP, man.
Absolutely. we don't take no mess, and that's one of the parts. That's a great segue. I wanted to let the listening audience know that I talk about Jackson all the time, and I do so because it's one of the most underappreciated, undervalued places in the South, in the country in general. And there's such a wealth of history that is taking place. It's even sometimes undervalued within the black community, like you hear about your Birminghams and your Selmas. And Jackson is such a mecca in terms of African American history. And even the name Jackson came from a president,
Andrew Jackson, right?
Absolutely, that recruited free blacks from the North to come help him win a war in 1812, and praised their valor in war, and at the same time he owned slaves. And so from this inception, Jackson is one of those places with a duality of personalities. You know what I mean? And
absolutely.
So many times people from the outside looking in, they see the shortcomings, they see the deficits in financial matters, but what they don't see is the power of a historical perspective that could actually benefit a lot more if they would pay more attention to it. Can you expound a little bit on what Jackson is to you? It doesn't have to be historically, but just your personal experiences growing up in Jacktown.
And Jackson is probably, I consider Jackson to be the most disrespected, underappreciated city in America. Yes, sir. I mean, Mississippi is unfortunately deemed as the worst state in the union. So if you 50 in everything good and number one in everything bad, let them tell it, right?
Yes,
but whenever you have a capital city like Jackson that's predominantly African American, it's what we know. Even leaving out of Jackson, I didn't leave Jackson until 2013.
Yes, sir.
Where I navigated over to Austin, Texas. Was able to establish some great relationships amongst some great African brothers and sisters, and I now reside in Los Angeles, California. But I'll say this: nothing compares to Jackson. Jackson, it truly is the city of soul. I know that's the title now.
Yes, sir.
We come from the hospitality state, and we've become experts at doing more with less. Yes, that's kind of what it comes down to, a resilience. But under all of that comes forth this I would just say we're diamonds in the rough, though, man. We've always been contributors to all things that are great in society, whether it be in music, whether it be fashion, whether it be a lot of the things that influence a lot of people.
Sure.
If you trace it back, you're gonna see some Mississippi roots tied to it.
Absolutely.
The problem is that Mississippi is just never given the respect that it garners. But when you take that great talent and you exit, usually when we go into other places, we thrive. You know what I mean? So, but as for me, growing up in a working class family, mom and dad split up when I was 7, and kind of seeing both sides of it. We dealt with a poverty element. We dealt with a crime element. We dealt with a lot of different things. Having to juggle multiple hats. Being I'm one that experienced the good and the bad of Jackson. Having losing a brother that was murdered in the city. Losing nephews, losing a lot of loved ones, yet at the same time having lifelong bonds and relationships that I still value to this day. So
absolutely.
When you factor in that and you look at where I come from. You know, you're talking to a brother now that's, you know, working for Fortune 500 companies, you know, senior level position. But I come from brown bottoms, you know what I mean? Like, you think about it. I don't have a lot of childhood friends that are still alive right now, you know? Most of them died through homicide, and that's just that's an ugly element, because really I think the things that plague Jackson's really just, it's just like anywhere. When you strip a city of resources and you don't provide the right things that are needed, there is no more Boys and Girls Club like it used to be back in the day. You know what I mean? Like the kids nowadays don't really have a lot of the programs in place that we used to have that would keep us out of the street. You don't have any more Mr. Bewleys at Broadmoor Baptist Church that had everybody in the city playing basketball at the church. You know what I mean? Like, that's what we grew up off of. Many of those kids that came out of Jackson went on to play in the NBA, Mo Williams being one. I know we all came through. If you was in North Jackson, you played at Broadmoor. So that's just a little bit of it. But I mean, at the end of the day, Jackson is a very resilient city, man. Filled with tough-minded, you know, citizens. I mean, in our community that have endured a lot, and I don't care where you put us, man. We're gonna be just fine. If you can make it in Jackson, you can make it anywhere.
Absolutely.
That's how I look at that.
Yes, sir. Just to drive the point home to listening audience that is listening to me, Jackson is a unique place, and one of the things historically, and we'll get into football in just a second, but one of the things that's so unique about Jackson, Brother Brown, is that it is one of the few places in the South that really didn't just take to nonviolence. And what I mean by that is during the civil rights struggle, right? And anybody who is desirous of reading some material on that time period, I got a couple books for you. We Will Shoot Back: Armed Resistance in the Mississippi Freedom Movement by Akinele Umoja. You hold that up for me, brother, because it's hard for me to hold that up. The next one is This Nonviolent Stuff Will Get You Killed by Brother Charles E. Cobb Jr., and that's a statement made by the great Charles Evers in regards to what he thought about nonviolence and how it would actually work in the state of Mississippi. It was just a non-starter. And the last one is Jackson Rising: The Struggle for Economic Democracy and Black Self-Determination in Jackson, Mississippi. Hold that up for me, brother. Jackson, growing up, was one of those places that you even appreciated more after you leave. Lessons that I got from my dad and uncles and so forth. History was all around us. Like, you could go to a place like the Apple Inn, and it's a lesson.
Big Apple Inn. Yep.
It's a historical treasure trove where, you know, Medgar Evers and Fannie Lou Hamer had an office upstairs in this little restaurant, you know. The Republic of New Africa and Frida Land and all of that is just, it's everywhere. But the attitude of the average citizen there is just like Brother Clark said, we're going to make something out of nothing. And that spirit is still in the city, even in the midst of what is going through, the water crisis, the roads. Like Brother Ken said, if you remove the resources that are necessary to keep that infrastructure up, what do you think gonna happen? So we on our way back, and we clawing out of it. But not to be too pessimistic, I'm gonna get into some football, Brother Clark. How was this weekend? The first thing I wanted to ask you is how, from someone who was there, how was the ESPN College Game Day experience, and what were your main takeaways from it?
Man, it was actually it was amazing. I'll say that. I've been a part of several Boombox Classic weekends. Like I said, even though I'm on the West Coast, I've been to 6 games this year.
Yes, sir.
I went to all 4 of the football games, and the picture you're showing right now is
I really want to talk about this.
Coach Walker from Tomorrow's Leader Sports Network, myself, D. Corey C., the brains behind Tiger Talk, the 1400 Club. Of course, Zoe, and then you had DJ, who from Raw Truth Media, and last but not least, Kobe Orr out from the Blessed City podcast.
Absolutely.
So I've been able to establish a relationship with Dwayne Lewis, our SID, Sports Information Director at Jackson State. And I really wanted to make sure that these brothers, when they came to our town and they came to cover a game that's very important to us from a rivalry standpoint in the SWAC, I wanted them to have that experience. I mean, they're content creators, and I'm not one of those brothers that, you know, even though I'm trying to grow our platform to another level, growth is not impeded by, I would say, standing in the way of others being blessed. You know what I mean? Absolutely. I feel like there's enough seats at the table, and there's room for all of us, because we're talking about covering HBCUs and so forth and so on. So that element alone, I wanted to start there because it was important to me to go above and beyond. You know, I reached out to Dwayne personally. I know they emailed me, and I met with him on Friday, and I was like, these guys are legit, man. I feel like they're going to help us tell our story. They're going to come and see this. It's going to be a great experience.
Absolutely.
But before I got there, man, I was on the way. I wound up making it to the stadium around 8:30 on Saturday, and I turned on College Game Day on my cell phone. And I'll be honest with you, man, it gave me chills, man. Just seeing the crowd out there. That was the one thing I was like, man, I hope we got to show up. We got to show up. We got to show up and show out. We got to represent. We can't come half-stepping. I knew there was some weather, possible inclement weather. So I was like, I hope that doesn't affect anything. But, man, when I say I watched it, I was very emotional, because I have been wanting this for so long for Jackson State. Absolutely. Coach Prime came in, and it's just been a godsend. And the weekend itself was just electric. I mean, us being 7-0 with a chance to being 8-0 for the first time in Jack State football history, it didn't disappoint. I mean, you still had a great turnout. We had over 50, right at 54,000 people, tickets sold, and would have been more had people probably decided to not come as a result of the rain. But got a chance to go, and I stayed from the time I got to the stadium. I stayed until Stephen A. Smith did his pick. And from there, we navigated over to the tailgate and got some food real quick before we went inside, and then it was just, after that, it was business as usual. We get inside, we watching the football game from the sideline. We taking pictures, getting content, just all the whole full experience. And then, of course, the rain delay. But overall, it was just, this has been phenomenal, man. I'll say, to see Jackson State fans stay in. When it started raining, everybody was prepared, man. They pulled their ponchos out. Nobody wasn't trying to leave, man. It was on and popping. So the DJ was in tune. The crowd was rocking still. We go up on them, and then from there, we took the life out of them, man. Yes, we jumped on them, and it was nothing they can do about it. Jackson was there. They represented, and man, it was electric, despite the electricity literally being in the air with the lightning delay. So amazing weekend. We're currently working on I'll say this, I have to be long-winded. No, you good. Myself, Zoe, and Shaq have done a Paradigm Prime series where we did a part 1, part 2. We're working on part 3 right now because we really want to talk about the actual impact over the last 2 weeks. Yes, sir. The historical impact of all the things you've seen transpire with Jack State football. We're working on that, and we're going to highlight, Good Morning America, the Shador Heisman campaign, the 60 Minutes interview, College Game Day, you name it. We're going to basically talk about where we started from the time Coach Prime was initially announced up until the progression that has been made and real sustainability post Coach Prime's exiting. So, because that's the most important thing. It's great to have everything happening while he's here, but we really need to have a serious conversation about a true contingency plan to make sure the things that we need to carry this thing on is going to be put in some real true infrastructure is going to be put in place to maintain a lot of these things. So that's why it's important that we continue to organically build our platform, because we've been covering, like I said, we was covering Jack State before Coach Prime got there. We're going to be covering him after he leaves. Hopefully that's not until 2030, but yeah, man, over the weekend it was amazing, man. It was I would have never forgave myself if I wouldn't have made it, man.
Absolutely. I wanted to add that as a lifelong Tiger fan, I remember being in the 3rd grade, walking out of the vet crying because of what Cooley and Rice did to us. I remember walking out of there crying from that old silly fumble Rooski play that we gave up that game in the playoffs, and to see that ass whooping on ESPN is part of my French. In a monumental, like you said, a monumental 2 weeks, almost maybe the 2 biggest weeks in HBCU football history, almost. What I wanted to talk about next was this defense. I know there's a debate, and what I try to do is remove myself emotionally from it, and just look at the numbers, look at the statistics and the data, the empirical data. I don't know if we've ever seen a better defense than we saw this weekend, this whole year. Maybe. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think this is the greatest defense Jack State has ever had? And for those who don't know, that is saying a lot.
It's saying a lot. I know the 96 team. I know a lot of those guys are going to be, their ears are probably going to burn behind this. But I'm going to tell you right now, I mean, men lie, women lie, numbers don't.
Absolutely.
This is absolutely the best team we've ever seen so far, thus far, from an impact standpoint. When you look at this defense, I had a conversation with Zoe yesterday, and I'm going to make this statement, and this is probably going to shock a lot of people. Jackson State, in my opinion, will not have a lot of defensive all-SWAC players because of the amount of parity amongst the defensive side. I mean, the stats are so spread evenly that you're not going to have – they are one unit that they operate. I know Aubrey Miller is the face of the defense, and he's a man-child, but the stats are just not there because one particular week in and week out, you get somebody else that just does something great, you know what I mean?
Sure.
But as of right now, we're leading the nation in points allowed.
Yes.
I mean, which is 8 points a game. I mean, I haven't seen a Jackson State defense only give up 8 points. I mean, and I'll give you the numbers, 71 points total. And that's not even a real number because a part of that 71 is the seven points that we gave up when Shador fumbled the ball against Grambling.
Yeah.
So technically the defense has only given up 64 points this entire season.
Through
in 8 games, you do the math, that's 8 points a game. When you look at Southern didn't really cross the 50-yard line much this game. I mean, we took away everything. And when you're talking about a defense, and it's not, I'm telling you right now, I've watched every single game, the details of it. The thing that makes this defense different is the depth.
Yes.
The amount of depth that we have. We play about 9 defensive linemen each week. We play a lot of defensive linemen. We rotate a lot of linebackers and DBs. So when you're talking about subbing in a lot of players in and out, then you factor in having the best strength and conditioning program in the whole entire conference. When you get into the second half of games, I'm watching this team get stronger as other teams wear down.
Absolutely.
It's unbelievable to see, man. So when you look at just the youthfulness, the makeup from top to bottom of seniors all the way down to true freshmen that are making impacts, it's something that we've never seen before, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that the teams that came before them weren't phenomenal. That doesn't mean the Darian Connors, the Picasso Nelsons, and those big time players that played, the Javancy Jones, and the list goes on and on. We can spend all day breaking down past players, and I know Romero is not gonna probably like that because we debated at the golf tournament, and he didn't think the team last year was as good as it was. But I'm telling you right now, we've never seen 8-0. We've never seen this many shutouts. I mean, let's look at it like this.
Okay.
If I would have told you at the beginning of the season that Southern, FAMU, and Tennessee State were only going to score a total of 6 points, you wouldn't believe me.
I wouldn't have believed.
Well, I would have believed you about Tennessee State because my alma mater, Lane College, we beat TSU this year. So and I love doing that.
Afterwards, you did beat Lane. Shout out to Lane for that. That was amazing, by the way. That was gutsy with that two-point conversion. You know what I mean? That was a gutsy call, and I don't blame Coach one bit. They had the momentum and they had them on their heels. You got to go for it. So
But it was after.
I got to throw that in there every time, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. So, but that's my point. So when you look at it, my goodness, man, give up 3 points against FAMU, 3 points against Tennessee State, and 0 against Southern. I mean, those are the three teams that everybody had us pegged to. And then really, we shut out Campbell, only gave up 7.
Yeah, it should
and
have been 7.
That garbage touchdown at the end of the game.
Yep.
That's what I hated it, because it doesn't tell the whole story, right?
No. And
so
that penalty, we could argue that wasn't a penalty. That caused, it's, but it's neither here nor there. But still, the dominance is buried out in the stats, like you said.
This team, man, has the ability to just. They're gonna go after your quarterback, and we got enough DBs to cover on man to man. You got a Travis Hunter, 5-star, best high school talent coming to college football this season, and he's shutting the whole side of the field down, which is allowing Nugget to get his shine on, and now you're starting to see Shiloh tend to, who I think is I've been extremely excited about him returning. I mean, because he's a ball hawk. Absolutely. And he's a hard hitter. So you got to know where Shiloh is at all times. I know people like to say daddy ball, and people like to not really think about Shiloh, but when you really look at, he is the hardest hitting player outside of Auburn Miller on that defense, man.
Absolutely.
So when you get him back, and that allows Travis to do what he does, I don't really see how teams are gonna combat what it is that we do, because I always say this: no running quarterback is gonna have any success against Jackson State, because our defenders run fast, just as fast as your quarterback.
Absolutely.
So if you can't get back there and throw the ball, you got to beat us with your arm.
Yeah.
If you can't do that, then unfortunately you don't have a snowball's chance in July, man. So
absolutely.
Yep.
I wanted to also ask you, kind of piggybacking on what you were saying. I've heard Brother Zoe say quite a few times, give us that stat on how many quarterbacks from last season to this season how many teams have had to play multiple quarterbacks, because every game Jackson State put one out.
Saturday was the first game that they made it all the way through this season. Prior to that, it was seven straight. Each game that we've played all season, we've had to. Other teams have subbed out their quarterback, and Southern just stuck with McCray, man. I was shocked with that.
Yeah.
And he wasn't having any success.
No.
I thought that he was going to pull the plug and maybe go with Bubba McDaniel, but he stayed. He stayed with his guy, man.
I said I ain't going in there.
Yeah. You can say that.
Yeah. That might have been some of the behind.
I was hoping that he would at least subbed him out. That would have been, but no, he didn't. He stayed with him all the way to the end.
Yes, sir. And that might have been some of the behind the scenes talk, refusal to go out there after seeing what he saw. But
I'm good.
Well, I also wanted to talk about something that is not so pleasant, but it's something that I've noticed being a sociology guy. It's something I look at quite a bit, but and it's something that's a little different from the days of when I was growing up. Give you an example. When we had a coach, not HBCU in general, but the SWAC specifically, whenever we had a coach that was legendary status or approaching it or doing great things that got him acknowledged nationally, we praised those individuals. We looked up to those individuals. Even though it wasn't our rooting interest, you had a respect for Coach Robinson, Coach Chasm, Coach Cooley, so on and so forth.
Yep.
And also, whenever there was a player, I'm just going to throw a name out there, Steve McNair, whenever the nation took notice of him, you could have been a Mississippi Valley State fan. You could have been a Prairie View fan. It didn't matter. Everybody said, hand him the Heisman. So what is so different now that Jackson State has become the lightning rod of so much hate? I mean, I don't have any other explanation for it, but it is nothing you can do that's good enough. You can beat them 58 to 3. Last year you beat them 9-7, and you only beat us by 1 point. The next year, 56 of them motherfuckers ain't good enough. You need to go to the playoff. What is causing all this in your estimation, Brother Clark?
Well, I feel like it's an element that exists within our community that we have to be honest about, and that's I think I always consider, when you look at a Shedeur, Deion Sanders, and the hate that you've seen, a lot of people don't like to look at them as being true SWAC type, because SWAC is more like we got it out the mud. We're in the trenches with this. We had to go through the grind to get what we got, and then you just showed up with your big dollars and your limousine, and you know, we always frowned at the cousin that came from the rich cousin. You know what I'm saying? That came over. He was the one that got the most ugly looks. You know what I mean? And every now and again you had a cool cousin, but you had that one auntie, the bougie auntie, right? So I feel like it's somewhat of a crab mentality. I mean, when you really get down to it, I mean, there's no way to deny that. I know people don't like to really have that real conversation, but we got to be honest with ourselves, man. Shedeur is a baller, man. It's nothing. I don't want to hear nothing about no daddy ball. He's the best quarterback in all of HBCU. I would say arguably FCS. I know you got Lindsey Scott Jr. and you got the young man out of Fordham, but when you look at what he's asked to do and how he's carried his team, he's a true sophomore who has been starting ever since he came to this conference. And I'll say this right here: Shedeur has lost 0 SWAC games in his 2 years at Jackson State. Absolutely, he has not lost a SWAC game yet. So. A lot of that stems from just flat out hate. We hate. We in our community. We. I hate to say it this way, but we kill to help. We do. We do. And we got to be honest about that. And many of us like to. Let me see how to put it, man. It's sad, but it's a reality that it is what it is. You know. I understand. I like to have conversations with those that are real about it, and they say, look, man, ain't nobody beating y'all, bro. Like, this is just, y'all hit the lottery with Deion, and it just kind of is what it is, and we just going to have to either ride the wave, follow the blueprint, and do the best we can and just hang tight and try to elevate our stuff while you guys are doing what you do. You know, so whenever he does leave, you know, it's wide open for us to kind of take over, right? But you're not gonna satisfy some of these people, man, because they have already decided in their mind that they just gonna hate everything that happens, and they're not gonna celebrate anything that goes on because, like I said, they don't feel like they are a part of. We love it because we've always been hated in the conference. They was hating on us, and we were at 3-8. It was the same thing. So for us, it's like we really got our chest stuck out now. We finna give it give it to you raw now, because y'all talk smack about us when we was down for those last 8 years. But I like to look at it like this, man. You know, for those that, you know, from a biblical reference standpoint, you know, those past 7 years was our lean calf, man. You know what I mean? I referenced the Nebuchadnezzar dream. You know, you had the skinny calf and the fat calf, man. 7 years of plenty, 7 years of famine. We went through our famine, and now we eat now. So don't make no difference what you feel about it. I mean, at the time, Deion Sanders wanted to coach, and we needed a coach. And shout out to A.D. Robinson for having the balls to go after him and do his homework and really make a serious offer and really be able to sell him on the idea that HBCUs is an opportunity for you to come in and change the game. You know, they don't want to hire you. You had a great interview with Arkansas. You had a great interview. You thought you had an opportunity. They went with Sam Pittman. So, okay, all right, I'll tell you what you do, coach. You come on over here and show these folks what you can do, and then they'll come calling again, and that's what you see transpiring now. But we're never going to satisfy everyone. We're not even trying to. There's even an element that exists within our own fan base, man, that's never satisfied with nothing that he does either. So it's not just outsiders. It's just we just have to deal with that aspect of it and you know, be honest about it.
Yes, sir.
So
you know, that's funny that you say that, because I had a conversation with a gentleman, and you know, and like you said, you can't just talk to everybody about football, because some people, you know, no matter what you say or what somebody does, they're going to feel a certain type of way about it. But the same people that will talk about his son at quarterback, and they be like, oh, that's daddy's ball, or he ain't that good, or he's good enough for black college football. You know, these are the same people that are talking about Peyton Manning. I forgot, I don't know if it's his son, his grandson, his nephew, or whatever. But they'll talk about him like, oh, he's the greatest, he's the second coming. I'm like, look, you know how I feel about TSU. And it's all from football. I don't hate the school or nothing. But whenever they play against somebody like Vanderbilt or something like that, I'm rooting for TSU. I don't get it.
It's in my blood.
If he has a chance to win the Heisman, there should not be one person saying anything other than giving him the Heisman. I don't get it.
And the lowest part, and I'm gonna get off of this after this, but the lowest part for me and was the Campbell game. I never seen. It just didn't happen when Florida A&M was in the playoffs last year. I rooted for them.
Campbell was my breaking point, man.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And
that was the day that I said there's no more SWAC unity. I don't want to hear that shit, man. I'm pardon my friend. I was like, I was furious with that. I was like, y'all are trash for that, bro.
Yeah.
Like, we y'all go ahead. It's okay. Just don't come back.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't want to hear HBCU love. I don't want to hear SWAC love, SWAC unity. I don't hear none of that.
Yeah.
Y'all root for Campbell. I mean, then everybody started. I'm very outspoken on Twitter, man.
I don't even know who the hell Campbell is.
Well, it's
most of them didn't either.
Yeah, all they knew it was a white school and they were supposed to whoop Jackson State. And then when it didn't happen, it kind of was like the Floyd Mayweather thing. Well, you didn't fight this guy, fight him and whoop him. Well, you didn't fight this guy. Pacquiao was the last one. And then there's no more excuses. It's kind of at that point now.
Well, you waited till he was old.
Yeah. And that's what they saying now. You see, A&T beat them. They wasn't really all that good. That's not what you were saying. You was
right.
It's amazing to me. It's just amazing. But to go back to the actual game, the Boombox Classic, I didn't make it down this weekend. I have had experiences in Baton Rouge where I left with 3 windows in my automobile, when I arrived with 4. So there's no love lost between the Southern. Explain to the listening audience the level. I will say, full disclosure, my favorite game to go to, and I will be in Lorman at the end of the season, is the Alcorn. I just grew up with that Soul Bowl.
Yeah, me too.
And my mentality, that's the rival. But it has always been a hate attitude. I mean, it's right up there with the Iron Bowl, Ohio State, Michigan. The greater world just didn't know about it, and Coach Prime was able to bring it to the greater world. Kind of explain that game to people historically and why there's such a bitter rivalry. Why when you see somebody from Baton Rouge and somebody from Jackson, it's around that time in October, it's going to be something. What's behind that game?
Yeah, I mean, Jackson State Southern, that rivalry is heated mainly because you're talking 2 schools that mirror each other. I mean, very, very much alike in a lot of ways. So, you have the Alcorn in-state family rival. My first real experience in the SWAC was, watching Steve McNair play, that I can remember, like really in it, not just going to a game one a year and just being attached to it. But Steve McNair era was the era that I really started paying a lot of attention, because at this point I'm fourth, fifth grade, elementary school. But when it gets to Southern Jackson State, man, that's just a nasty rival. We don't like them. It's a band battle. It's always been not just a band battle, but when you talk about anything with Southern, I don't care if it's baseball. We can shoot marbles, man. I don't care what it is. We want to beat them jokers, man. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
Both cities are capital cities. Baton Rouge, capital Louisiana. Jackson is capital Mississippi. You're talking 2.5, 3 hours apart, 2.5 hours apart, in the same conference. A lot of just historical, just heartbreaking loss.
Yeah. I think we may have lost the connection there. But Brother Brown, this game, the Boombox Classic that we're talking about, unfortunately, the outside world doesn't understand it, hasn't seen it.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Oh no, you back. I think we lost you for a second, but go ahead.
No, I was saying that it's a lot. There's a lot of history there, a lot of nasty history, a lot of battles that there was a fight at the end of last year's game when we wanted to plant the flag on their 50-yard line. Man, you had 2010 with back and forth. Like I said, Case Terrio had to win the game 3 times. Then you have the Battle of the Bands. It's deemed the quote-unquote Boombox Classic. we feel like the Boom is the best band in the land, and they feel like the Human Jukebox is the best band in the land, and there's always going to be that element. So when you put it all together, it comes down to just being like I deemed it Ohio State, Michigan. You know what I mean? Neighboring states, we hate each other. It's nasty. I don't really care. We ain't really friends like that.
Yeah.
We just want to beat y'all. It's disrespect, man. A lot of disrespect. So it has grown legs, and it has, I would say, grown into one of the bitter, most nastiest rivals in all of college football now, man. You know?
Absolutely. For the sake of time, I'm gonna wrap these questions up. Last two. Give me your 5, and since we, I'll just make it in general. Either side of the ball, give me your 5 favorite JSU football players that you've either seen or heard about or read about.
Number one, I'm gonna say Big Country was my favorite running back because I had the number 41 jersey. It was my first Jackson State jersey. I'm a big fella. I played fullback coming up, and
Hey, Brother Brown, he used to knock face masks off.
Oh my goodness, man. He was that dude, man. I love Big Country, man. I would say that the next one, most of them going to be offensive players because that's one of the things that made us love Jackson State football. The next one, I'm going to say Graylin Pratt, man. Quarterback, just had that swag about him, man. That was when I really started. I was looking at Jackson State football players when he was playing quarterback like these dudes were celebrities, man. These dudes were big, you know what I mean? There's Big Daddy Carson days, man. So you go back to it. Then you fast forward. Now I'm in college. I'm gonna say Robert Kent. It was one of my favorite Jackson State players. I just thought Robert Kent was he was Superman. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I go by Ken Clark. You know what I mean? But he Robert Kent, obviously. You know, I saw him play in high school. Had this funny release, but he had a cannon on him, and I thought that after TC, you know, they moved TC over to wide receiver. Love Coach TC and TC as a player.
Yes, sir.
But once he took over forever. He was probably one of the most decorated players in our history.
Yes, sir.
But just was a big fan of Robert Kent.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna say my next player, and I would say Rico Richardson, man. I was a big fan of Rico Richardson during the Casey Terrio era. I know he's one of the best wide receivers I ever seen come through Jackson. I know he's probably going to be a little low on some of the other lists because I know we got Jimmy Smith, Tim Barnett. We got a lot of big names that played wide receiver for us. But when I go back and look at it, I would just say Rico is up there, one of my favorites. And last but not least, man, I would say one of my most favorite Jackson State players. I'm gonna say Javancy Jones.
Yes.
I'm not gonna name any of the players that currently play because I do have relationships. I love all the Jackson State players, and I don't want anyone to feel, you know, if I single out one, they're gonna be like, oh man, you know.
What about this one? What about that one? Yeah.
yeah. So Javancy Jones, I thought he epitomized. He was a part of a very tough time for Jackson State football. He was one of the best players, and I just loved his character. I loved his story. I gravitated towards Javancy. I thought he decided to get into coaching relatively quick after having a chance to try to make it into the NFL. But one of the best undersized defensive ends. He was just an impact player, man. I watched him play all 4 years that he played. Go through multiple coaches and just still be a pillar and a face for and like I said, there's a lot of names out there. When I think about Jackson State football and those are the players that I really gravitated towards. Those are the ones I really wanted to go. And I know Casey and whatnot, but those players right there that I mentioned were the ones that meant the most to me.
Yes, sir.
Just because it kind of marks when I first started as a kid, and then when I started to really go back into it, coming into like high school on into college, and That's where Robert Kent picks up. Then he going into Rico, where I really was like, now I got a little money and I'm going to games. And I traveled. I went to every single game to watch Rico play. I just thought he was the best wide receiver.
Yes, sir.
Nobody could stop him. And I know it's not a lot of defense, but for the most part, those are my top 5. If I had to pick 5 that I feel were my most favorite players that put on the Jack State uniform.
Absolutely. I'm gonna give you my top 5. I'm gonna show you how old I am. The only offensive player I would have, and that's not, I'm just a defensive guy, but the only offensive player I would have would be Lewis Tillman. That's who we all. When you played both sides of the ball in junior high, elementary school, when you was on the offense, that's who you wanted to be. That's a picture of him. 23 right there. Up one.
Up one.
Go over to the left.
Oh, right here.
Yeah.
Lewis Tillman. There you go.
He broke Peyton's single season record one year, and then the overall.
Never got a chance to see him play, but he's a big time player in the history of our programs, man. Yeah.
Absolutely. And one of my favorite players would be Kevin Dent. Man, just a tremendous free safety. Watched him, and he literally pulled some games out for us in the closing seconds, pick sixes. Defensively, I would go with Leon Seals, Dr. Sack. Man,
Dr. Sack, man. I knew him I knew Leon Seals as the sheriff. As the sheriff, man. He lived in the neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? I heard about him. I just, I'm only 40, man, so I didn't get a chance to really see him play.
Yes, sir.
Like that.
He was awesome. And the last, I don't know how many I've given you.
You gave me three.
Okay. Let me throw another offensive player in there. It would be my favorite quarterback because he came. I don't have a picture of him, but he came from my favorite year, which is '87, and that would be Shannon Boyd, the Rankin County.
Shannon Boyd. Yes, I thought you were gonna say Ricky Jordan. That's who I was a little. I wanted to go Ricky Jordan, but Graylin Pratt to me was just. It might have been his name because I just thought he was. He was a smaller quarterback, but I like Pratt. I like Pratt, man.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
And that last one, to make it 5, I can't name one of them. I got to name all 4 of them. They're like Voltron to me, and that's that linebacker core, Connor and Connor.
Yeah, boy.
Collins and Lloyd, man, they were something else.
Yeah, man. That was the dark side, for real, man. Them dudes was bad, boy.
Absolutely.
Aaron Connor was that dude, man.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask a question because you said something earlier about Jackson State now with the defense being and they are. I mean, they didn't allow anybody to score on them, and the stats don't lie. But the way football's played now compared to how it was played back then.
That's why it's not a fair comparison.
Right. I get that because I look at it all the time, and a lot of people say, well, this guy's good, but I kind of look at it a little differently because as a wide receiver. We got hit a lot more than these wide receivers now.
And you got thrown to a lot less.
You also can look at the fact that the game has changed more in favor of the offense.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's hard for I played linebacker, so it's very difficult. You got a very, very small window to tackle now.
Yes,
I usually could hit you anywhere when you're playing back then. That's one of the reasons I zeroed in on basketball because the concussions,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Leading with your head and knocking yourself silly, man, because we was gonna take your face off.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And that's how we played. But nowadays, man, defenders have to think about how they hit you.
Right.
And I think that's even harder in comparison to just lunging.
And
you know what I mean?
They don't have a lot of time to think either, man. When you playing a game, you don't have a lot of time to make a decision. I mean, you have to react. It's crazy.
Now, I would say this though. I don't think any of these players are as tough as the players that play.
Oh, yeah, that's a different conversation.
We're not debating toughness.
No. Absolutely.
We ain't debating toughness. I'm not saying ain't no. Now, there's a few players that you see out there. You say, oh, he could have played. When Aubrey could have played.
Oh, yeah.
He's a maniac. You know what I mean? Some of these other players, they would have got the goose cooked.
Yeah,
they just had enough toughness.
The pat the head to come out.
I'll do this though. I can give you top 5 real quick of like the Coach Prime era.
Okay.
He has so many players come through. Number 1 obviously is going to be James Houston. But number 2, I'm a huge fan of Cameron Silman Craig.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely love the way he plays the games. I think he's a throwback, plays the game just like Bob Sanders. And
Jack Tatum.
Yeah, man. And then of course, Shador, QB1. I'm a huge fan of Shador's. Really like him. Love Dallas Daniels, man. I just like the way he plays, and I would say Aubrey Miller.
Yes,
Those
sir.
are my 5, man. I just, I know it's only a couple of years that they've been there, but those are the players they just stick out for me, man.
Absolutely. For the sake of time, real quick, I wanted to touch on this, and I promise the last one I'll let you go, being respectful of your time. Can you explain to those in the listening audience? I have these arguments all the time: playoffs versus celebration bowls. I'm sure you can explain that better than I can. How it's no. See, I used to be in that crowd that I wanted to go win it all, until I saw the data. And
the data don't match.
No, can you explain to the audience?
Absolutely, real quick. The data. Well, here's the first issue. The first issue is a scheduling conflict. As in the SWAC, people have to understand that we place football all the way into the Thanksgiving season, into Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving usually the last Thursday of the month, usually. So I'll just give you a scenario. Last season, on the same day that the Bayou Classic was being played, FAMU was playing Southeastern Louisiana. So just in order for a SWAC team to go into the FCS playoff, they have to not be contending for the SWAC championship.
Yeah.
Because if you keep in mind, the SWAC championship is always a week after the Bayou Classic. So in order for Jackson State to get into the FCS playoffs, we would have to finish second. And we would also have to finish with a decent enough record to get an at-large bid, and we're just not willing to play second fiddle just so we can get into the playoffs. That's the first thing.
Yes, sir.
Second thing is that the Celebration Bowl monetarily fits within our model right now. Because of the fact that we can't enter the playoffs, the Celebration Bowl, which now I think is in its 7th year this season, you're looking at the ability to go and play a bowl game after the season where the MEAC champion and SWAC champion play, and they're able to, there's $1 million payout. Now, of course, there's a small, some of that money is divvied up amongst the institutions, all of the member institutions, but the lion's share of that money goes to the team that wins the game. Obviously, but here's the thing, even if the payout was, let's just say, $500K.
Yeah.
The reality of the matter is that in order to go into the playoffs, you have to bid on a home game. So not only do you have to bid in order to host a game, but a major part of that money that you look at from hosting a game is going to go to the NCAA. So from a monetary standpoint, it just doesn't make sense for an HBCU to pursue deep runs into the playoffs, because even the PWIs who have larger endowments, larger athletic budgets, the ability to financially, they have gone into the red trying to chase this game, which is several weeks after the season, and then you're mostly going to be on the road.
Yeah.
So even though FAMU got a chance to go and play against Southeastern Louisiana, it wasn't very far for them, but the reality of that is the bulk share, the lion's share of those expenses for traveling is going to be paid by the school.
Yes, sir.
When the school makes their athletic budget for that year, they're budgeting for the entire season. They're really not budgeting for anything past, and they're not budgeting for deep runs into the playoffs. And there is no revenue that's being generated from these games. You're merely just basically operating in the red just to chase a championship. So no HBCUs right now really in that type of position to where they can sustain deep runs. There's a lot of data out there when you look at a James Madison. James Madison elected, you know what, they were operating at a deficit every single year. It just made more sense to go to the Sun Belt, because when you go to FBS, there comes TV money, there comes conference money, and there comes other income and revenue streams that's going to allow you to offset those expenses. So it would be nice to see that, but at the same time, you would need the NCAA to be a little bit more, I would say, favorable for the FCS teams, and that's just not going to happen, because all the power is controlled by 99% of the power is controlled by the big boys, and they're not looking to relinquish any of that power right now. So
absolutely.
And I'll say this one last thing: those schools that push that, they push that because they don't have a Celebration Bowl. I tell everybody, love your own stuff. We princess, man.
Yeah,
our stuff is great. and stop thinking that, you know, Zoe say this all the time, black folks devalue black things.
Yes,
you
sir.
got to change your mindset.
Yes, sir.
And we're the ones running around here thinking that our bowl is not good enough because we really and truly, if we're being honest, we're really looking for white acceptance.
Absolutely.
That's really
Validation. And if one of you get in there, ain't gonna do nothing but send your ass up there to North Dakota State somewhere.
That's what I'm saying.
Get you out of there quick. But real quick, tell the listening audience where they can listen to you and subscribe to you, along with Brother Zoe and Brother Corey.
Hey, no worries at all. So first and foremost, please go to Tiger Talk with the 1400 Club right there. See it on the screen. Tiger Talk with the 1400 Club podcast. We're on YouTube. Go on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, turn your notification bells on. I'm also on YouTube with a separate page, Ken Clark _1400. Of course, you see myself and Zoe and many of the friends come on live stream and just talk more in depth. Recap, so forth and so on. But on social media, IG and Twitter, Ken Clark _1400. Facebook, irrelevant. I ain't really on Facebook like talking about it. But yeah, I appreciate you, brother, for having me on. This has been fantastic. I'm sorry my camera is tripping.
You good?
I got a new computer, so I think
understand.
my little USB port might have did something weird, but if it did, I'm about to take this joker back. So
we understand. We appreciate. One real quick, I gotta ask one last question from my partner, one of my homeboys, Greg Poindexter. He wants to know, can you explain a little bit about what's going on with the stadium, the state of the new stadium?
The state of the new stadium, like the President Hudson said recently, what you have is that even if we break ground, so here's where we are. Nothing is going to happen without the state, giving a nice portion of that money. So if let's say it this way: if the amount of the stadium that is going to cost us 120 million, the state's going to need to put up around 40. So we're looking at the state to kind of cover around a third of the expenses, and then you're going to have Jack State is going to do their own private funding and along with sponsorship, so forth and so on, to raise the rest of it. But without that transpiring, we're really not even going to get started. I do expect to see the conversation pick back up where we can finalize a spot. Jackson State is standing firm on we want the stadium on campus. We're not budging. We're not going to the Metro Center. That's stupid. Pardon, for anybody that thinks that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like, you might as well refurbish what you got if it ain't gonna be okay.
You might well stay where you're at. It's asinine to go to the. And I'm gonna say this too: Jackson State is not Jackson. Jackson State is in Jackson. It's not Jackson State's responsibility to revitalize Jackson. It's actually Jackson's responsibility to invest in Jackson State. So it's actually the other way around. It's always this mentality of what can Jackson State do for Jackson? No. It needs to be the other way around. And I'm gonna say this too because Coach Prime has said it. The city of Jackson need to make sure they tip in the Jackson State football program with the influx of revenue that's coming in. If we want to keep coach in place and keep this gravy train rolling, we should be forming some type of business collectives to make sure we can get them coaches paid. But anyway, as far as the stadium, whenever we do decide to agree upon I want to say we're looking at about a 35,000 seat stadium with the ability to expand with the addition of additional seats on campus. Whenever it is agreed upon, you're still looking at maybe 2 to 3 years out from the time you break ground to the time it's completed. So that's what he did say recently. That the conversation is very real. We are looking to have a stadium within the next 5 years. I know that's not tomorrow, but 5 years is close proximity when all my life we played in the vet. So I'm excited about it. I think it'll be I don't think a stadium is something that is going to happen like tomorrow.
Sure.
I also don't think that a stadium is going to keep Coach Prime.
Yeah.
That's we just have to make sure my mentality on the stadium, bro, if I'm being honest, I wanted to renovate the vet, stay where we were.
I'm with you.
I wanted to reinvest into the university.
So much history there, man. Goodness gracious, man.
Yeah, I would say put that money and put all that energy towards dorms, dorms, man. New dorms, new state-of-the-art dorms, amphitheater, everything that we can get on the campus, and then the stadium would be last if it was up to me.
Absolutely. And so appreciative of your time, brother. Last thing, a couple more books as homework for the audience. The legendary voice of the sonic boom of the South, Dr. Jimmy James. He wrote this book. It is about the history of the voice of the sonic boom, and those who have seen them and remember those days know that.
Ladies and gentlemen, find your sensory apparatus.
Yes, couldn't nobody bring them out like that.
Oh my goodness, Jimmy James, that's classic right there, brother.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And one more. It's called "To Survive and to Thrive: The Quest for a True University" by Dr. John A. Peoples Jr. It's a great read, historically wise, and also it's a great motivator for those who really want to see what we're talking about when we say make a way out of no way. And also, I feel kind of funny doing it, but let me top my own book. I Only Have an Hour, a look at Mississippi through the lens of a black college football cultural framework. It's about my experiences growing up and loving SWAC football and being told by my elders to actually cut the Ole Miss game off, or we're going to get the belt and go upstairs, and then learning why I should. But, man, so appreciative of you, Brother Clark. It's been a real blast for myself, and I hope people in the listening audience could have gotten something out of it.
Hold on a second. Mr. Clark, now you say you live, where you live at now?
I live in Los Angeles, California now.
Oh,
man.
so you moved out of Mississippi and went to California?
No, actually, when I left Jackson in 2013, I went to Austin, Texas. And I lived there 7 years, and I have officially made 2 years in LA now.
Oh, okay. All right, so you're in LA now. You ain't SWAC.
I'm more swag than I'm more swag than any of them.
He don't understand how serious that is.
Man, I'm definitely swag. You don't have to worry about that. Hey, I was rocking. Look, I was rocking JSU merch long before it became cool.
When it was
Russell,
when it was Russell, you know what I'm saying? If you could stay on for just a second, Brother Clark, I want to share something with you in regards to why you made that comment. You'll get a kick out of it. But to the listening audience, so appreciative of you again. Please join us next week, Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central. That's on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Pandora, YouTube. I know I'm leaving off a few, but in the words of the great Harriet Tubman, we out.